Hello React Native developers, what is going on? Welcome to Can It Be Done in React Native. This week we flip through the news. Hello React Native developers, what is going on? William here, live streaming from beautiful Zurich, Switzerland. Great to be back and great to do it live. It might get ugly because like mistake can happen, but I just find it much better to do it live. You guys join on the chat. It's just I don't know. It's just a very cool experience. And today we are looking at a classic, which is, so let me open it from my phone. It looks like this. Okay, so we are looking at the Flipboard flip animation. So you see you can flip through stories like this. You can go back. So very cool 3D effects. I think quite an iconic effect. I think it's like pretty famous. And there was a suggestion made by a subscriber of the channel. So I thought it would be a really cool example. And we did the Instagram episode, which was we were using a 3D transformation. So I thought it would be cool to do another one now that we understand 3D transformations. So how would we do this in React Native? So there are two things here. No, there are three things here. I mean, there is a lot going on, but let's try to break it down. So the first thing would be the gesture, and so we obviously have like some sort of vertical scrolling. And so when I first looked at this example, I was like, oh, we should do a scroll view, a transparent, like we always do, absolute fill scroll view, which is empty, but then we use it to drive the vertical gesture. I love the scroll view because it does a lot for free, and if you want to implement the same example using reanimated or the pan gesture handler, it's going to take a lot of boilerplate. You need to execute some JavaScript side, at least for the pan gesture API. And in the case of the reanimated, it's very low level, so you just get a lot for free with the scroll view. You have the snap points and so on. So first, I thought of using the scroll view, but you see here, so this is the resting position. I can swipe either from top to bottom or bottom to top. So which means that if we were using a scroll view, and let's say we would use the content container height to be twice the height of the screen, we would need the default position to be scrolled in the middle. So we couldn't choose the default scrolling position, which means that we somehow need to wait for the scroll view to render and then programmatically scroll it. So in this case, I love the transparent scroll view, but in this case, I think it's going to be too much of a hassle, and we're going to use reanimated. And so reanimated is extremely low level, so even to implement a simple view that you can drag vertically and then having like two snap points, right? So here we have a snap point on top, snap point on the bottom, and same for the bottom position. It's a lot of work, right? We need to remember where we are in the gesture, calculate the snap point. If you enables the gesture again, and the animation is not finished yet. You need to do some canceling and stuff. But what we can do, and if I go to the reanimated, React Native, reanimated, so what we can do, and that's what I'm doing a lot at the moment. If we go in the example, there's a lot of pre-made examples that we can use. And one of them is interactable, which is essentially an implementation of interactable.view from Wix in reanimated. And we can use this to implement this snapping gesture out of the box. It provides everything that we need. And yeah, just as a side note, it's always go to the examples in reanimated. For instance, if you want to do color interpolations or spring animations and so on, you can always copy and paste from the example repository, and it works great. I do it all the time, and I think it makes sense because since reanimated is quite low level, there is like some common higher level structure that we can use. And so that's for the gesture. We're going to use reanimated and the interactable component. Then, so what kind of layout do we have here? So I think we have a background image. So, okay. First, so we have these stories. And I think what happened, you see here, it really looks like an image. Let me go back, sorry, to put back the phone here. And hello everyone from the chat. It's so great that you guys are joining. I hope you are well. So what we would do is display the story. So, okay, we have an image, we have some text. Take a snapshot of the view, which we can do in React Native on both iOS and Android, I believe. And so we have an image from this. We cut the image in two. And then, so we have a couple of layers here. We have like a background view, so which is a background image, which is what you see here, where it's written science. And so the background image contains, for the top position, contains the top image of the previous story. So we have an array of stories, right? And then at the bottom, so which is what you see here, where it's written fossilized, is basically the bottom picture of the next story. So on the background, we have an image, which is on the top, is the top image of the previous story, and on the bottom is the bottom image of the next story. And then, so that's the background layer. And on top of this, we have two views, which are these movable views here. So each view has a gesture handler, so we're going to use interactable. And then we have two faces. So the first, so here we have, like, for instance, in the one I'm moving right now, we have the bottom of the current story, and the background is the top of the next story. And here we have the top of the current story and the bottom of the previous story. And the way we can make the view flippable like this, so we have a rotation on the X axis, and we have the back face of the, so we have two views, right, which are overlaid on top of each other, the front face and the back face. The back face of the front the back face of the front face is invisible, and the back face of so the front face of the back face is rotated on the Z axis, first of all, to have it in this right. If you look here, it's inverted. And because the view is rotated also on the y-axis, right? The back, because so we have two views that overlay on top of each other. We need the face of the back one to turn the other way, so we'll rotate 180 degrees on the y-axis. And then we finally need to rotate on z-axis, so here it appears in the right order. And then when we finally release the gesture, we render the whole, so we update the index of what is the current story and we render the whole view. So I think that's pretty much it. And now quickly, before we get started, let's talk about the elephant in the room. So the elephant in the room is Android, of course. Is this gonna work on Android? So in the version I'm using Expo 32. For some reason, I couldn't make backface visibility work on Android using this version of Expo, and I'm not sure if it's because it's not shipped yet in the version of React Native that is shipped with Expo 32. It's possible, but something very cool which I found is that, so you see here, this is how the backface visibility hidden is implemented on Android in React Native. So we simply look at the rotation either on X or Y and set the opacity of the view depending on these values. And so this is something we know how to declare natively using reanimated, right? So we can have an animated view with an opacity value which is implementing exactly this operation. So backface visibility on Android should be fine. And then the final issue I would say is, like for Instagram, we had so on Instagram we were really making these measurements to have according to the perspective, to have like really the right equation and to have something really pixel perfect. And that was not pixel perfect on Android because we couldn't get the actual value of the perspective, which is also an issue which I filed against the React Native repository. So there is a default, and we know why. So there is a default perspective set on Android views, but therefore when every time we do a 3D transformation in React Native on Android, we don't have a lot of control over the perspective value, and that can, in the case of Instagram, and I expect it here to be the case as well for Flipboard, it's going to lead into inconsistent animation. But we'll see. So I do have some confidence that it's doable in Android. And if I go back, maybe one last thing before we get started. So here we see that we have basically two views, the top view, the bottom view. So here if I flip the top view, it's on top, if I flip the bottom view, it's on top of the top one, which actually is pretty normal because it's in the order of the tree, it's the bottom one. But now if I flip the top one, it gets on top of the bottom, which means that every time we start dragging, we need to set some z-index value. So whatever is dragging, whatever is the view we are dragging and flipping appears on top of the other view. So, Simon, thank you so much for sending me a super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And if you have a request for me to do in the channel, I'll make sure to do it first. So thank you so much, and thank you so much, guys, for joining. It's really great. I hope it's not going to be too much of a. I'm not going to run into too much 2 hours. So yeah, what do you guys think? Can it be done in React Native? Let's have a look. And before we get started, very quickly, I would like to let you know about React Native Elements. React Native Elements is a premium starter kit for React Native. It's 80% of what you need when starting a new React Native project, from static typings, React navigation, and lots of beautiful UI components you can use. So food, social, music, photography, travel. We try to provide you with all the best practices, all the UI components you need to build a new React Native project quickly. So you can check it out at react-native.shop/elements. If you have a new React Native project coming up, I recommend you check it out. So, all right, let's get started. So I created a boilerplate project here. I created it, I made a video on the channel on how I create a boilerplate project using TypeScript and Expo. So you can check it out. And I took a few screenshots from the Flipboard app, and what I'm doing in loading. So I have an app state which contains all the stories, and the story is the URL of the top image and the URL of the bottom image. When we mount the component, we go through all the image, get the size of the image, do two crops of the image. So the first crop is the top image, the second crop is the second part of the image, and that gives us a story. So we use image manipulator from Expo to generate these images. And so the source image, here I just took some screenshots from assets, but what you would do is really build the image yourself, take a snapshot, and that would be your source image. So for instance, here I'm having images which have the aspect ratio of the iPhone 10. So if you're running this on Android, for instance, where the aspect ratio is different, you will get a strange result. But if you display the view and take a snapshot of the view, then you will get a great result. And what I'm doing, so I have the current index, and I'm getting the previous story, the current story, and the next story. So when there is no more story, either at the beginning or at the end, these are special cases which we will handle later once we have implemented the animation. So that's why currently the index is at 1 and not at 0. And then we show the background image, which is simply the top view, the top image with the bottom image. So this is an extremely simple component. And the background image, the top image is the top of the previous image, and the bottom is the bottom of the next image, which, as we've seen in the example. So I think now we're gonna create a story component which will contain so we will create the story component which will contain the front face and the back face of the top. So we will contain the front face and the back face, and we will do it twice, once for the top, once for the bottom. So we can create a story component, and as parameter we have the front, which would be the current story and the top image of the current story, and the back is the bottom of the previous story. So that's for the top part, and for the bottom we have the bottom part of the current story, and the back is the top of the next story. And when we rotate from the bottom or the top, so the rotation is, and the gesture and the translation is a bit different, right? Because it's inverted. So here I can add a bottom attribute to indicate that we're going to do the gesture the other way around. So now let's create the component. So we can create a story component. Oops. So we have front, back, bottom. And by default, bottom is false. So I'm gonna create a container. So first I'm gonna do a flex one because we have this flex container, and we want each story to take half of the screen. So we want them to try to take as much space as possible, both of them. So we're gonna do a flex one, and then we're gonna have two animated views. So one is gonna be so not from animated React Native, but from reanimated. So maybe let me just first, so we can get it from the danger zone in Expo. And yes, so we'll have back face, front face, which actually will all just display the image. Okay. And so we get the images from the props. So front, back, so source URI equals back, and we're gonna do so we need to do an absolute position field for the image plus I'm not sure if it's a bug or not, but we need to set width and height to undefine for the resize mode to work as we would expect. So I'm going to create a styles.image. So this one is the front image. So we're going to create a style sheet. So it's an absolute position field. And with undefined height. Okay, and I mean there is not much to see here already, but let's see if we have something. And while it loads, I can check out the chat. Can I? Just trying to have the chat. I can see the chat up on the other screen. Perfect. Hello guys, it's great to see you. So, okay, we have our stories. Now we need to add the gesture, right? Because we're gonna need to animate these views. And I'm actually surprised that here the views also should have. Let me just check something. So, is this the first story? I think it didn't display anything. So basically here what we see here is the first story, so which is displayed by this component. So we are not seeing anything from these components. And I think it's because we need to add an absolute field. My MacBook is really struggling with the live streaming and coding at the same time. It's very sluggish. Okay, so now what we're seeing here is the true stories component. And now we need to add the gesture handler. And so we know that we're going to take the interactable example from reanimated. And so it's the same if we think when we implemented the Tinder example, first of all, after the recording, so we did a lot of manual labor and low-level labor, and at the end the result was not perfect. There were a couple of issues which I fixed afterwards, and then it was, I think the end result was pretty good, but so that was a lot of work where we could have used, for instance, interactable just as a drop-in replacement, and that was doing all the work for us basically. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to create a new component called interactable, and just, I don't like this .view, so I'm just going to export the class directly. Okay, and I think, I'm not sure, but in TypeScript we probably need to use React components and import. I'm not sure if I need to do what I'm doing right now, but just to be on the safe side. So now we have our interactable view, which we can import. And we want it to surface the whole area, so we're going to add absolute fill, and we want, so let me check. We want the view to, so the gesture to be vertical only. We need to set some snap point, and the snap points depend on if we are at the bottom or top position. So let's see snap points. So if we're at the bottom, position, we can snap to minus the 8 divided by 2 of the screen, or 0, I think. Well, let's just try. And so I need the dimensions module. So hello guys, yeah, I'm gonna try to check out the chat as we go along. So maybe I can quickly answer some questions. Yes, this will be available on the channel afterwards. And what do I think about Flutter? I think Flutter is great. I haven't tried it myself yet, but I really love how React Native is also the kind of innovation that React Native has inspired. And so Flutter seems to be really an amazing project, and I love how, so this was inspired by React Native, and now Flutter is inspiring back React Native. So for instance, because now how is it called, with the Fabric APIs, so we're going to be able to invoke native code without using the bridge. So yeah, I really think, I love also how, that it sets the bar very high. So for us in React Native to build really rich experiences. So it's, I think it's just great how we emulate, the communities emulate each other, but I haven't tried it personally yet. So we can get the 8. And so our snap point is, so y is minus 8 divided by 2. So when we're on top, we need to translate from 8 divided by 2. And then the other one is 0. And if we're at the top, 1 is, snap point is 0, so the regular position, or 8 divided by 2. So we go down. But if you guys have questions non-related to this example, maybe I'll stay after we build this example. I'll stay on the channel and I can answer questions which have nothing to do with what we're doing here. So we can just pass the snap points. So I'm pretty new to live streaming, but I find it to be extremely pleasant, much pleasant than recording alone like such. I mean, this is gonna take, I think, quite some time to build. I think it's so much better to, to do it with you guys than to do it alone and record it. And yeah, I don't know. But let me know also, how, if you think there are ways you would find this format a little bit more enjoyable, just let me know. So that looks good. And so what I would like to do now to try to maybe debug it, see what's going on. I'm going to add a background color so we can see the gesture moving, and so we can see if we implemented this properly. So maybe so let's see. So let me put the So this is the top view that you see moving. So if I go in this direction, snap back to 0. If not, snaps to the bottom. Perfect. And this one is the top one, I guess. So goes to top, goes to bottom. So it looks pretty good. So I can remove this. Now we can pass, we need to create an animated value, but we will use, so we can pass an animated value to interactable, which will contain the animation value, the current animation value, and we can pass it, and then we're going to use it to drive the animations. So let's create one, which we're going to call y. Oops. So we get it from animated. And so there is a property if we go in inter. I did a big typo here. Let me just fix it. Interactable. Mamma mia. Up. So that should be better. And here. Okay. And I think we have something called animated value y. So this is what we want. And maybe what we can try to do is to log the values out. Let's maybe try to animate first. Yes, so for those who are asking in the chat, this will be available on the channel like a regular video. So once the stream is over, you can watch it later. All right. Yeah, so let's try maybe the rotation of the front face first. So we're going to rotate. So we need to rotate on the x axis, but it's not using the middle position of the view. We need to translate the rotation to the bottom of the view for in the case of if we're on the top, and we need to translate to the top of the view if we're at the bottom. So let's calculate, and the rotation, the direction of the rotation is different also if we're on the top or at the bottom. If we're on the top, we go from 0 to 180, or 0 to 180 in one. So from top to bottom, and from bottom to top. No, it should be the same actually, but let's see. So let's do so we have rotate x, which we interpolate from y. So we do the front face of the top first. So the input range goes from 0 to height, or height divided by 2. So you can do 0. Here it depends on how fast you want the translation to happen. So we can do 0 to height, and the output range goes from 0 to 180. Or which direction does it go? Is it minus 180? Let's see. And we can extrapolate. So extrapolate clamp. Also we need to import these guys. And we are going to need concat as well. So interpolate and concat. So this is the value as degrees. And rotate x is the concat of rotate x as degree. So now we can add the transform. Let's do it maybe just, I mean we can do it on both actually. And then, I mean, we apply, so to the front and back face we apply the same transform, but on the back face we need to add some extra transform which are setting the rotation in the y-axis to flip the view, and then on the z-axis to have it appear in the proper order. But other than that, the other transformations should be the same. So let's do it here. Up. So transform. So we need to translate y first to the where we want the middle to be, and then rotate and then translate back. So we translate y should be 8. So again here it depends on if we're at the bottom or the top, but let's try with the top first. So we need to translate from 8 divided by 4. Then we do the rotate x, that's good. Oh, that's not the right syntax, sorry. Then rotate x. Translate y minus 8 divided by 4 and not 2. Okay. Here should be the same. And hey, thank you, man. We maybe can do the translation if it's at the bottom as well. So I think what we can do is create a variable called cof. If it's at the bottom, we multiply everything by -1. If not, because so 8. Yes, because if we're at the bottom, we need to go up from a quarter, so that would be -8 divided by 4, and then we need to go down, so that would be this one, and so it should be the same here. Let's try to see how it looks. I'm actually not even sure right now what I'm expecting to see. So nothing is moving already. And the view seems to be inverted. me debug the gesture again. I saw something moving. Okay, something is off here, so let's do it. Let's breathe. I'm very nervous because this is live, but let's do it step by step. So I'm gonna remove the bottom view here and just replace it with an empty. So flex. Can I? So flex 1, background color red. So let's see. Let's do the top after we do the bottom. So if I go back here, oh sorry, you guys cannot see the font. Okay. So this one shows up at the bottom, but I'm not sure why. Background image in absolute field, it's good. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so we have a layout issue here because we have a flex 1, 3 absolute views on top of each other, but actually this one needs to be, is that correct? It needs to be on top of these 3 views, which actually, but I'm just tempted to group these two in. Up. Same issue. Yes, because here, so I made a mistake. We need to, oh my god. So here did you guys see it in the chat? Did you see the mistake? So here I translate to 8 divided by 4, so I need to translate back here. Same here. So let's see. Okay, now it looks good. Yes. And maybe one thing we can do is add some perspective only for iOS. Perspective, say 1000. Oh. I'm wondering if I should create a perspective variable, because then we can say, you know, on iOS we don't want any perspective because there is already a perspective. So perspective. Maybe I can use platform. Fernand, pas de problème. Avec plaisir. So perspective equals 1000, for instance. And I think we can just do undefined or empty object maybe. Okay, so this should be good. So we had some perspective. Just need to and okay, so if we go back to the phone, so you see now we see the back face of the front face, so we need to make it invisible. So back face visibility hidden. In the version of React Native I'm using right now, backface visibility is not supported on Android. I believe it is supported in newer version of React Native, but there is a very extremely simple workaround you can use to implement it using reanimated. And this is what I really love about reanimated, is that you can declare on the native side such things. So basically you can copy one-to-one the native implementation on Android written in Java and declare it in JavaScript. And so, yeah, very cool. So let's see here if the backface visibility worked. So you see now we see the backface. Perfect. But now we need to flip. So to flip it, first we can maybe flip it on the z-axis by, I think, 180 degrees. So rotate, oh sorry, this is the front face, so we can do the back face, 180 degrees. Better. Oh, so here we have a problem with the snap point. So let me just reload. And now we need to flip it, which makes sense. Because here we see what we are seeing here is the back face of the back face, and we want to flip it so we see the front face of the back face. So this is the back face, and we're gonna rotate on the y-axis of 180 degrees. Okay, it's not working very well now. So let me see. Okay. Okay, so now it works pretty well, but we have a problem now, right, with the snap point, because it snaps to, I would say it snaps to the right position, or should it snap to, no, to 8 and not 8 divided by 2, sorry. So here should be 8, and I guess for this one should be minus 8. Because we set 8 here, but we could actually take another value, it just depends on how, boom! So, you see, works nicely. Now let's do the bottom. I can remove, should I remove? Let's keep it, the background color for debugging. So now we can replace this one. Up. Okay. So it looks horrible, I'm not sure what's going on here. So we probably have for bottom some really wrong values. I think first of all we need to because here on the top we interpolate from 0 to 8, but here we see we go from 0 to minus 8. So the input range needs to be different. Oh, I'm sorry, I do it on my phone and I don't realize that you guys cannot see the phone. But here's the input. Okay, let's do it. So input range. Maybe there's a way to show the iPhone using the open broadcast software instead of always me needing to bring it up to the view. That's my second live stream. Hopefully I will get better with time. So if the input range at the bottom, we go from 0 to 8 divided by 2 minus 8 divided by 2. And if we're at the top, we go from 0 to 8, which is correct. And output range. So if we're at the bottom, so we go from 0 to 8, but then we need to put it in ascending order, so from minus 8 to 0 because of the interpolate function. So we go from 180 degrees to 0, or from 0 to minus 180. Okay, let's have a look. So the top, here you see. So this we're gonna fix later, because in the tree hierarchy, the top view is below the bottom view, so therefore here it disappears. So when we start dragging, we need to add some Z index. And the bottom, whoop, bottom looks good. Cool, huh? Cool, so now we can fix, so when we start dragging, and we have an event for that in Interactable, when we start dragging, we add some Z index for iOS and elevation for Android. So maybe this one I can remove. gonna need to add some state to our component. So when we start dragging, we notify that, so we have a state where the component knows that the dragging is on, because we're going to use it to render the tree with a special Zen index. So story state, and we call it is dragging, it's a boolean. And the default state is false. Okay. Now we need to, there's an event for it somewhere in interactable, which I think it's called onDrag maybe. Yes. And so here we get the value. So we can create onDrag, and so we have is dragging from the state if is dragging is false, we set it to true. I'm not sure I usually have auto formatting on my files. It doesn't seem to be working. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I don't know. Very strange. So I can use it here. Oops. And now from the state we know is dragging. And here, so we have Z index. If we are dragging, it's 1 or 0, and Z index is elevation on Android. Or Z index on iOS. Let's have a look. Up. No, that didn't work. Is dragging us. Is dragging 1. Okay, looks good. So it's not working. Let me just try to debug it. Up. False, but now should be set to true here, right? Just okay, let me open the console. So is dragging true. Me. I'm not sure. What am I doing wrong? Do I need to maybe move this to the top component? Could that be? Let's see. And actually, maybe I don't even need this extra container. Let's have a look. Okay, so works nicely. Perfect. So maybe I can remove this guy. Okay, looks good. Looks good. So pretty good. What do you guys think? So now I think the next step, we have the animation working, is that when we snap to the previous story or the next story, we need to update the current index from the app component. So we need to update this index, and then we need to, when the index changes, we need to re-render everything properly. And once we're done with this, we need to enter the edge cases, which is when we're at the beginning or when we are at the end of the story. So let's keep it going. There is an event also we can use from Interactable once the snapping is finished, and I think it's called on snap. So you see we really got a lot for free from this component. So we didn't have, do you imagine if we had to do all these things ourselves? So having the gesture handler, listening to the gesture events, implementing the proper animation values, the spring for the animation, calculating the snap points, and now calling back in JavaScript when we start, the dragging when we snap. And here the snap property gives us the snap point. So we're going to use this to know if we need to snap to the previous story or the next story, because we're going to get the snap point as parameter. So it's pretty amazing how much we get for free. And so yeah, let's implement the onSnap method. Hello guys, great to see you. Okay, so onSnap. So this is how it looks like. But so what I'm gonna do is to add an ID. So I'm gonna add an ID attribute to the snap point. So we will have an ID attribute here. I can just even create the type. It's gonna be a number, and then this number is gonna be -1 if we need to go back, 0 if we stay on the same story, +1 if we need to go to the next story. And we're gonna pass So we need to give it to this element. So we're gonna have a property called onSnap as well, passed in the properties of story. So onSnap, and we do onSnap, we pass the ID. So I need to define it here onSnap ID, which is the number. Okay. So here we need to implement onSnap. Snap, we get the ID as a number, and so we simply do set state is, so is it called index equals current index plus, okay, we can call it index, we can call it index here, and current index we get from the state. Okay, and so now we need to set these IDs to our snap points. So let me go back to the snap point definition of the snap points. Where are they? Okay, here are our snap points. So here, if we are at the bottom and we snap to -8, it means we go back to the previous story, so ID equals -1. If we go to 0, ID equals 0. If we're on the top and we go to 0, we snap to 0, it's ID equals 0. If we snap to, oh sorry, so if we snap to 8, ID equals -1, we go to the previous story. And if we're at the bottom and we snap to -8, it's a +1. So let's try. So here, didn't work. It snapped one story too much. Let me try that again. So here, nothing happens. Here, because I don't handle the case where current index is 0, it should crash. Okay, that's good, that's expected. But here, current index becomes 3 and it should be 2. So what am I doing wrong? Current, let me just log this value. So index value for index is 2. If I set it manually here, that's the proper story. Okay. So I'm tempting to try something, is in order to not update the current component, and I think that might be the issue here, but really to have a new component, use a key, so to make sure the identity of the component is different when we change the index, just to see if it's something in the life cycle, basically, that I might be doing wrong. Okay, so that's not a problem. Okay. Yeah, so that was the issue. So let me show you. So we have the story up, and now I can go back. It didn't, so something happened here, you see? No, looks good. Go to the next. Go back. Pretty cool. I think, guys, we're pretty close. Thank you for bearing with me. So what's next? Now I think we need to handle the edge cases. So for instance, such as this one. So if there is no previous story, I mean, so if there is no previous story, we basically return okay, let me copy this. We have the background image where the top is the top of the current story. The bottom, here it doesn't matter because the bottom will never be displayed, I think. And at the top we have nothing because we cannot flick for any previous stories. There is no previous stories, so we do just a style flex one. And at the bottom we have the current bottom, which is good, and we have the next stop. So let's try if this works. So you see now it didn't crash. I cannot swipe. Yeah, I'm trying to swipe to a previous story. I cannot, but I can go to the next one. And so the final edge case we need to handle is when there is no more stories. So when next, so I'm going to copy this again, when the next is false. So when there is no more, so the top story is the same, so I can just copy. And there is simply no more bottom story, so I'm going to just put a view flex one. And the background image, the bottom, there is no next, is the bottom of the current. So let's have a look. So any Expo boilerplate you recommend for authentication, username, password? If you use Firebase and you use Firebase with JavaScript, I have Shameless plug. I have built one which is called Fiber with Firebase, and it has implements the authentication workflow and Cloud Firestore integration, image upload, and so on. So you might want to check this out. I did some YouTube videos where I implemented it live, so we can check that as well. And so Peter is asking, what are we building today? We are building with the Flipboard animation effect in React Native. So in the boilerplate I just showed you, you can use the JavaScript. I use the JavaScript SDK. I was able to go far enough using the JavaScript SDK, so didn't need to detach for this use case. But so let me actually try. Now we see if we go at the end. So you see this is the last story. I can go back. Oh, something weird happened, I think. Stories 1, 2. Okay, let me just do this. So I flip through story. And so this is the last story, cannot flip more. Something is off here. No, yeah. So if there is no next, the bottom is the current of the bottom. The top should be, sorry, the previous of the top. Front should be the current top. Previous bottom, I think should be good. Yeah, perfect. So guys, I think that's it. I think we did it. As soon as the live stream is over, I'm gonna upload the snack. You will find it on the GitHub repository. And so there's a GitHub repository. Can it be done in React Native? So you will find it there, as well as the snack. And if you want to support the channel, you can use super chat like Simon did, but you can also buy me a coffee using this page. If you buy me a coffee, you will have access to the private repository where I tinker with all the examples. I will also make sure that your requests are done in priority. And so I will just try to, so people who are buying coffees, I will try to send exclusive content as much as I can. And yeah, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you guys think. And I think I'm gonna stay maybe a few minutes live. If you guys have questions that I could answer, let me know. There's 20 people watching. That's so cool. I'm blown away. So that was, okay, 1 hour 23 minutes streaming. So that was not too bad. We did have some struggle to implement the example, but I think we managed nicely. So guys, before I sign off, do you have any questions or comments? Hello, Carlos. I'm streaming from Zurich, Switzerland. So I'm not sure where you are based. Hello, guys. All right, guys. So that was great. I'm really looking forward to talk to you guys soon. And in the meantime, happy hacking.